Alright guys, you knew it was coming. You knew I had to talk about Deathbringer eventually, because he's like the coolest. So today we're talking about whether my dear Murder Basket is actually a hero or a villain. So obviously, Deathbringer is a pretty fan favorite character. He's widely loved, but does that mean he's a good guy, or even an okay guy? I know this has been done before, probably by people who remember more of the actual books than I do, but this is going to be my take on it. And before I start, yes, I am aware that in the early books, Deathbringer and Glory had a significant age gap. Is everyone else aware that Tui told us she did that accidentally and retconned it later on? Okay, thank you. Obviously, she would not write that kind of thing intentionally and frame it as good. Anyways, moving on with the video. I'll admit I did some reading on the wiki before writing this because it's been a while since I've read these books, so I wanted to brush up on my facts. But in general, the consensus seems to be that Deathbringer is a pretty okay guy, described as thoughtful and trustworthy, among other things, although trustworthy doesn't make sense to me, but anyways, his big thing is that he follows orders. I think this is kind of the crux of the issue right off the bat. Deathbringer did terrible things since he was an assassin, but he was following orders. Now, I'm not saying that just because someone told him to kill those dragons that he has no responsibility. Obviously, he could have chosen not to. Although he was raised into the life of an assassin, trained to be one, and taught to obey his tribe, eventually Deathbringer could have chosen to spare a target, showing that he's learned and grown as a character. Oh, wait, he did. By the time he met Glory, he hadn't necessarily decided to quit killing dragons because it was bad, per se, but I think we can get a lot of insight from a quote I totally found on the wiki that comes from Deathbringer's Winglet Assassins. Spoilers if you haven't read it, but it comes directly after his mother is killed. It shows his inner dialogue saying, "But this will never happen again. If I find someone else I care about, I will not let my mission come first. I will break any order. I'll endanger my own tribe if I have to. I will make up for this someday, somehow." So that's a pretty clear statement. Deathbringer's core characteristic here is loyalty. He doesn't stop killing dragons because he has an epiphany moment where he realizes it's immoral and wrong or whatever. He stops because he meets someone who matters more to him than his own tribe, and he's willing to go against their orders and risk their wrath to instead be with her. That's honestly one of the reasons I like Deathbringer so much. Loyalty is one of my favorite traits in characters. Now, in Assassin, he does resolve to get creative with his orders, but that's another result of loyalty, not morality. His mom died because they followed orders to the letter and put the mission above each other. Deathbringer decided that from then on he'd think for himself. So he's still following orders, but really because he has nothing better to do, in a way. There's nothing and no one to tempt him away from the Nightwings. Not until he meets Glory. Now, obviously, they don't hit it off right away. At least, she's pretty annoyed with him at first, though Deathbringer is enamored with her. But they do have a connection, and for Deathbringer, who has no real friends or family left, it's enough to, relatively quickly, get him to entirely switch sides in the Nightwing's little secret war. I like how this characterization stays strong even in the second arc. We don't see Deathbringer repentant for his actions or getting on the straight and narrow. No, he's just following Glory around as a bodyguard, totally 100% committed to her all the time. It's loyalty, and hopefully not too much codependency, but it's his core feature. Glory now has his loyalty, and he has hers too by then. Anyways, back to the question, is he a hero or a villain? Well, it's a little bit more nuanced than that, I think. He's not a villain per se. He didn't go around knocking dragons because he liked murder. Unlike some other assassins we see in the series, Vulture, he doesn't seem to enjoy his killing, and he often goes to great lengths to keep his kills as clean and painless as he can. Also, again, his targets and jobs weren't his choice, though he didn't fully break away from that lifestyle until he met Glory. Plus, we have to remember that the culture of Wings of Fire isn't necessarily translated one-for-one to our own life experiences. Dragons are more warlike in this series, and they were literally in a war at the time. I doubt he was the only assassin running around. Not that it makes it okay, but their culture's a little bit different from ours. It's even mentioned in the books. They are a little bit more vicious. So I don't think he's a malicious or an evil dragon. He's got his flaws, sure, but he's not mean-spirited. However, I wouldn't go so far as to say he's a hero, unless it's Glory he's saving anyways. However, I do think he lands on the right side of the line, even if he gets a little close sometimes. For now, I think his loyalty to Glory keeps him doing the right thing, and after some more time, I think he'll start to absorb some of her morals too. It's always a work in progress after all, and he's making good progress at the moment. I do appreciate that his characterization stays so solid throughout his scattered appearances in the books. He plays a big part in Arc 1, obviously, but in all his other appearances, he's never changed too drastically. He's always just working away at his own character arc there in the background. I will say that's one thing I have always loved about Tui's works, especially the first 2 arcs. She's really good at remembering all the iron she has in the fire, so to speak. There are several background characters who stay consistent along their own character arcs, even as more main characters or plot events are progressing in the foreground. Alright, this actually ended up being a lot shorter than I expected it to be. My conclusion, though, is that Deathbringer isn't good or bad, just extremely loyal. And luckily, right now he's attached himself to a reasonably good character, so he's in the clear for now. What do y'all think about Deathbringer, though? Do you agree that loyalty is his core characteristic, or do you think it's something else? Would you look at him as a morally good or bad dragon at the current point in his story? Are there any other characters y'all want me to look at like this? Don't forget to check out the links in the description, especially my store. I've got lots of neat stuff there, and it's a really great way you can support me. You can also find links to my DeviantArt and Patreon if you want to see more of my work. As always, thanks so much for watching, and have a blessed day.